Welcome to one more workshop from our wonderful Superteam Balkan Coliseum Cyberpunk program. My name is Mattia, for those of you who do not know me, co-founder and co-lead along with wonderful Marco and Jed here for the last year and a half. Today we have with us the amazing Pedro Miranda, head of consumer for Solana Foundation. Welcome, Pedro.
Thanks for having me. I'm extremely excited to be here. I think last time we did this was in April, which seems ages ago. So I'm excited to chat about consumer crypto. I have a little presentation that I can take us through in terms of insights that were helpful last time around, and then we can dive into a discussion similar to last April. So let me share my screen here.
Amazing. Yeah, basically, so this time around we have 70 teams, which is a big record for us. So you're now talking to a new crowd of people as well.
Amazing. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, amazing. So you guys obviously know this. Solana drives consumer crypto in all the aspects, from meme coins to prediction markets to NFT marketplaces to obviously mobile stores. And our focus is pretty eclectic and pretty diverse. Here's an outline of what we're going to be talking today. I'm going to talk about product opportunities in consumer crypto, just very briefly. Some interesting go-to-market ideas that I've seen teams do very well, and then we could open up to questions. I think just to preface the goal of Solana and the goal of the foundation more broadly, everyone in the growth team, the BD team, but also people indirectly are helping propel us towards this goal of one network, every asset, every market in a global unified state. Whether that be something from a helium miner to a tokenized equity for someone in Africa to access tokenized Tesla. Obviously, you guys know this in terms of Solana being the velocity and the network effect of that metric, but we want to continue to actually accelerate that. And consumers and retail users are a huge part of that experience. And there is a gap right now in terms of actually accelerating that volume, those network effects, and bringing that to end consumers who are crypto adjacent, crypto curious, or maybe even on crypto Twitter already. So I'm going to talk about, on the product side, how to build better products on chain. And this is kind of a synthesis of talking to teams at the Solana Foundation for close to 3 years now. And I've been in the Solana ecosystem for actually close to 5. So essentially, why do we want to build products on chain, right? Like, I think everything we have to do comes from a first principles approach of actually why building on Solana and why actually utilizing crypto rails. Like, why is this actually fundamentally interesting? Obviously, we have trustlessness and censorship resistance, security and provenance, ownership and self-sovereignty, interoperability and composability. I think this is the most important thing, the ability to take different pieces of information and state from different applications building on top of Solana. These are the unique things that crypto and Solana is really good at as a data layer, and programmable money, which these are just fundamental principles that we should really be actually focusing on. But I think one thing that sometimes we get in this crypto Twitter echo chamber is you want to deliver value to the end user immediately. As soon as they open up your application, whether it be on mobile or desktop, you really want to actually deliver value and make it clear what your value prop is immediately. And I'll get into things concretely what that means. Like, even for a crypto native user, there's nothing worse than a connect wallet button. Just because even though a crypto native user has a million wallets, they might have a Phantom or a backpack extension that has a really valuable wallet, or they don't want to commingle funds for whatever reason. We have the tools in 2025 to actually give the user a really good crypto onboarding experience whether it be through embeddable wallets or giving a user a public key. You can preview another public key, right? The really interesting thing about Solana technically is that Solana has native account abstraction. So you can actually give a user a public key, give a user a wallet, and preview what the experience actually is going to be on your music application or on your DePIN application or payments application extremely easily without having that connect wallet button that fundamentally will make users churn. In terms of product interviews that the foundation have done, that other crypto research firms have done, the connect wallet button is the place where users churn, because there is an asymmetry between the opportunity cost is not there for user to continue on that journey. So you could use a browser stored session key, which Solana has pretty good infrastructure for, to ultimately graduate to self-custody. We're not saying that Connect Wallet and self-custody is bad. We're actually saying that even crypto native users might not want to go immediately into self-custody, Connect Wallet, Phantom, etc. And there's like a notion of like a paywall here. A Connect Wallet is essentially a paywall, if you think about it in Web2 terms. So you can actually sponsor or give a user a session for free and allow them to graduate to a freemium or a premium model in the top of the funnel. So gas and protocol tokens, these are unnecessary frictions today. Transaction relayers are pretty well built today. ZK compression, which we can talk about if anyone has questions, can get you on chain for less than 1/10 of a cent. There are some composability things, trade-offs that we can talk about, and I'm happy to talk about specific solutions there. But these are things available today on Solana that a ton of talented teams are working on to get you this paywall experience. And then this is the value that I actually am more interested in. For a user with rich data with another wallet, you already know who I am. You know who Armani is in terms of a Mad Lads holder, power user. You know what other applications that he uses on Solana. A wallet has so much rich data that you could actually take advantage of that. It's extremely interesting where I see applications who ask users for Connect Wallet, but then also ask them for information to kind of fill out a form of like, what are you interested in? By having a wallet that has information in already, you kind of know a user's interests. If they're a power user on Solana, you can deduce their interests and actually deliver them that value immediately that we were talking about. So that's building for intent, right? That's building for intent, and that's actually building for delivering users value immediately, similar to what we talked about before. And where do we go from here? There's a couple I think of like product gaps and opportunities that we can talk about. Session keys, which is essentially sponsoring transactions, is something that I think is extremely interesting, as well as working on this experience of graduating users to a self-custody style experience, where a lot of those users are going to be high-paying LTV users. But that's something that we could talk about specifically in discussion. I want to talk about go-to-market, shifting gears a little here, just because I think this was valuable for the last time we did this presentation. How to build engaged on-chain communities. These are fundamental principles that I try to do, and I've seen the most successful teams on Solana do, is go direct on crypto Twitter if that's your core community. If you're institutional focused, LinkedIn is an amazing social media network. Any type of long form video content that you post on LinkedIn natively will do extremely well. Even if you're a crypto native firm and you're only focusing on crypto Twitter, LinkedIn is an amazing area just because there's a lack of high quality content there. So, and you could just copy pasta the content that you do there. Joseph does this to an extreme. He like shit posts he takes his crypto Twitter content and then he just copies it on LinkedIn, which is actually fine, which is actually a great idea as it is notable and actually it differentiates the content experience on LinkedIn. And over communicate, be consistent, over communicate. Algorithms such as explicitly, the more that you post, the better that the algorithm actually shows you to people. They're actually very, very ruthless. If you take a day off even, they will punish you for that. So just, or reverse engineer what the algorithm is actually giving you, and that could be extremely successful in terms of getting distribution. And that goes to my next one, right? Like, be your own distribution. I think something that Joseph and others on the call we've had conversations with directly, don't rely on an @Solana retweet or an @retweet from a large account, because you're centralizing your risk, and also you're relying on their audience, which actually might be fundamentally different than your audience or your users that you want to potentially target. Leveraging this going direct, being consistent, over communicate is a good way to build your own distribution. This third point is actually very, very specific, is having a brand kit that is very shareable to potential partners and to potential community members. This is actually extremely, extremely underrated. People love to engage with IP, with graphics, having a cute little mascot. Pudgy Penguins does this extremely well. Doodles, Claymosaurs, like all the top IPs in Solana and outside of Solana do this extremely well. But I actually think even for non-IP brands, having a mascot, having actually a character or logos is really cool. Just because even as a user, if I have access to Orca's, Orca mascot, and I can create, the Orca actually, playing football, playing soccer, I think it's a really differentiated way to actually, having a little Chompy, for example, right, that you could like customize and proliferate on your timeline. It's such an amazing growth hack, and you don't need permission. Like, something that I learned from Luca from Pudgy Penguins is that when he gets in a new group chat with a potential partner on Telegram, he just sends the Pudgy brand kit, irrespective of how early stage or late stage the conversation is. So it's a very low lift thing that is very positive EV. The last one is, partnering with Solana native platforms. This one is obvious, but I think also low hanging fruit. This creates trust in terms of how you're positioning your brand. Three teams that I really love. Drip, of course, in terms of distributing your collectibles, activating a creator and collector community. Solana Mobile is just a great distribution channel that we could talk about specifically if anyone is interested in. And time.fun allows you to actually, monetize your time and actually create interesting spontaneous relationships and access important people or interesting people in the ecosystem that a cold DM might not actually do. A few examples of this, Doodles, they were trying to expand organically into the Solana community. They've done a good job in terms of they actually, tying back the brand kit point, they leaked or gave their brand kit to a bunch of drip artists and encouraged them to create organic self-led content for themselves before they expanded to Solana. As a result, they dominated the timeline. They then launched a drip channel on their own, and they were able to actually get an authentic feel for their previous token launch on Solana. This is a new community. This is actually, ironically, an ex-Doodles core community member called Nuku or Nuko, where they actually grew their Twitter account or their X account from 0 followers to 10,000 followers in around like 10 days, which is kind of nuts. And they did this actually through their brand kit, ironically, where they actually they leaked their brand kit to early community members. They DM'd them. They automatically DM them on X, and they encouraged them to post them on the timeline, but also encouraged them to remix them, i.e. use AI on their content to actually recontribute back to the brand kit. And I think as AI is actually going to be, proliferated more, I think this like network effect of super fans contributing or super users contributing back to brand kits and then posting on the timeline is going to be extremely, extremely interesting and high velocity. So that's also something that even if you have like 5, 10 power users, they will be your biggest champion. And with AI, anybody can be a community lead, a growth lead for your company and for your brand. I have to talk about Joseph here. I love this example. I actually love this example. This is a great example of going direct and being your own champion. Joseph made an extremely comedic, but also nuanced video in terms of the journey of the Solana ecosystem. It's a legendary video. If anyone has it in the chat, please share it for everyone here. And then when it went viral, he did a really smart thing of asking Tolly to angel in his round. So this is like a very public setting, right? He opened the funnel, and yeah, he got funding with the meme. And this is actually, I think, the future where everything is converging in terms of culture, right? So I think like don't be shy, even if you're an introvert. The most surprising introverts are actually the loudest people on crypto Twitter. You'd be surprised. And you could start today in terms of just tweeting now, essentially. I think that's it. That was a lot. So I'm not sure how you want to do this. If we want to have a little discussion, or we could kick things off with questions.
I got a couple more questions like myself. We can have a little discussion.
Yeah.
But if anybody wants to ask a question, just feel free to post it in the Genie chat, and we'll get to it. I mainly wanted to ask about like the current state of consumer. Luckily, you didn't cover it too much in the presentation, and how we got here. Like why Sol? Because I've also been here since like 2022, and we've been through a lot as a community. Like how did we come out on top? Like what do you think? We would like to hear.
Yeah, it's funny. I genuinely think I'm biased because I joined Solana. I joined the foundation a week after FTX crashed. And to me, that decision was very easy. It was looking around and seeing people who are much smarter than me, especially the Tensor guys like Ilmoy and Richard. They really, really made an impression of they were doubling down on Solana. And it was a very easy decision of there are founders in this community, in this ecosystem, who are running through walls, and that creates that is contagious almost, right? That energy and that culture is contagious. Not only are they running through walls, but they're actually helping other people. Mert is a really good example of this in terms of always being available and helping out. I think the tech is obviously underlying that. Solana is an engineering and product-led ecosystem, and the tech always continues to be important. But kind of those two things together complements how we got here. Now, consumer crypto today, I think we have to talk about tokens, whether you want to call them meme coins or social tokens. Solana has, I think, year to date, close to $1.5 billion in application revenue. A lot of that on Pump, on Axiom, Believe, etc. it's it's like $300 billion of quarterly DEX volumes, but also 4 million in new asset creation, everything from fund tokens to tokenized equities that just crossed $150 million in total volume. So I think the thesis of consumer crypto is, how do you plug into that? How do you plug into a monumentous base, a volume of assets being created, of users who are craving net new experiences, to continue enjoying this revenue meta that is happening today? We can get into specific examples in terms
That's my
of
next question, actually. Yeah. I love that it's a
Yeah.
revenue meta. I'll never get over the fact that it's like a thing. We should probably be looking for revenue anyways. But.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We just we're close to obviously to the collector crypt team. They've done an amazing job of turning speculation on Solana and mirroring it with collecting. Collecting is a market agnostic behavior. That's also really interesting insight. There's actually super interesting data. During bear market, it's a store of value. And then during a bull market, it's almost like it's a speculative use case. So collector crypt alongside Vibes TCG, which owns the Pudgy Penguin trading card IP, they sold, I think, over $1.2 million in a surprise drop on Solana. And like it was a surprise drop. Like, we don't know what we're getting. This is the old Vibes card. But I think it signals that Solana is able to actually handle these like surprise commerce merch drops for a ton of teams. And they're ready to be the infrastructure for this. I think fundraising is such an interesting example of what Solana can do. Obviously, Pump specifically raised $600 million in 12 minutes with 0 bankers. And I think that's just absolutely incredible as a story. And I think we're going to see more of these types of fundraisers happening without their permission, without the permission of Wall Street, just natively raising digitally natively from a retail audience that is extremely excited, extremely interested to back Solana native projects.
Now you have MetaDAO and even like something like Genesis from Metaplex and Fundle and Nomu. Like, there's a lot of projects kind of working around that.
Yeah, and I think RWAs, similar to what the chat is talking about. The RWAs, Magic Eden just released a PAX product, which is extremely interesting. And it goes back to this thesis that I think, our colleagues at the foundation are working at. Nick Dukoff is working on institutional finance, of course. Jerry Lee, who mentioned collectibles mentioned, is working a lot with collectibles related teams. It is very much one network, every asset, every market, just because there is an extreme overlap of what a user does in their lifetime and access in terms of these different types of assets. Users yearn for eclectic types of use cases and assets on one chain. So I think having that flavor is a really good strategy for the whole Solana ecosystem.
Cool. You got any more projects that you'd like to shout out? Something like some that you like the most?
Some that I like the most. There's honestly, obviously, I'm definitely going to neglect some of them. But I think obviously what the Pudgy team has done in terms of launching their Pengu token is amazing. I talked about Noku. I think that's going to be a very interesting project, not only for the ways that they've done marketing in terms of this flywheel that they've created of letting their users be their biggest supporters, but also because I think there is potentially, I'm not sure, an NFT component to this, and I'm actually still extremely excited about NFTs. I'm a proud SMB, Solana Monkey business holder. I think NFTs are the ultimate social capital generating asset. Part of the go-to-market that we should talk about is also tapping into NFT communities, right? Like, this go-to-market of actually whitelisting and giving exclusive invites to NFT communities is actually alive and well. So when an app, for example, like Rally, which actually recently got acquired by OpenSea, when they expanded to Solana, they actually only expanded. They allow listed Mad Lads, Claynos, Solana Monkey businesses to actually get these communities really riled up about their product, and they did an amazing job. It was their most successful chain integration to date. So I think actually tapping into NFT communities as well as Superteam communities, of course, that's something that we have to talk about as well. That is where the social capital lies in any ecosystem, but we're extremely, extremely privileged from a foundation perspective to have these really strong niche communities live on our chain today.
Amazing. I'm very glad you said that. I'm also a child of NFTs myself. Got the monkeys, got drakes, got all kinds of things. So yeah, I'm glad we're not forgetting them. And the vibes were much better than the token vibes, I gotta say, back in 21, 22. More of a community feeling was present, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think I really think that when I say NFTs, when I say I'm bullish on NFTs, not even from a price perspective, but from a relevancy perspective, right? Like you go to Solana Spaces, which is another amazing project in terms of decentralizing commerce and Solana culture. The top selling, like merch, for example, and retail pieces are NFT community pieces, right? And I think that says something that that people still want to invest in NFT communities and feel I'm very proud to be a Solana Monkey business holder, for example. And I think that's like that's something that gives me a lot of joy to see the longevity of these assets on Solana.
We have Simon from Superteam Canada and also a Monkey DAO exec in the chat, and I think he's let down a tier at this point with so many compliments to monkeys. Love it. The rest is, I mean, I just wanted to kind of circle into, after this wonderful NFT story, to like state of opportunities, grants on Solana for our builders, and just also Coliseum in general. And hopefully our audience gets a bit engaged and posts some questions that's relevant to their specific case as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, on the fundraising side, it's extremely interesting time, because I think on the for-profit, more like MetaDAO style fundraising, we've seen extreme interest from the community in terms of bootstrapping these types of projects. Metaplex Genesis is another option. Like these projects who are raising through Metaplex Genesis, MetaDAO, they're extremely hot right now. So even if you're considering raising a VC round, I would implore you to talk to Profit, to MetaDAO, to Metaplex, to Genesis, just because giving ownership potentially to your community that has maybe a higher interest in terms of participating in a round rather than a VC firm would align potentially more. And also, from a capital perspective, that also kind of solves that problem. Metaplex also has a grants program pertaining to their use cases. The Solana Foundation, of course, we accept general grants. Shouting out to Joseph as well. Like Joseph, we worked with him and gave him a small grant when he was starting out on D-Reader, because this was a underserved, I would say, vertical that no one, not only in Solana, but we looked around in crypto, was working on. And comics, very similar to collectibles, market agnostic, right? There always is demand for comics, and also comics and artists were not getting paid efficiently. Like the model was broken, and Joseph was working on a way to leverage Solana to actually fix that model. So I would implore you, if there's an underserved area that you are working on, or if there is a model that you're actually you think is a better realignment, implore you to apply to the Solana Foundation grants program. But I also think, the way to actually get, like better exposure going back is like building publicly on X, right? I think the ability of just over communicating, posting constantly is that you'll get constant feedback. And for better or for worse, people love to give constructive feedback on X. And also reaching out to your local super team, of course, and Coliseum has been a great asset to many here, of course.
Yeah, we try to put that in all our builders' heads, like build in the open, and it's especially, you mentioned at some point, like introverted developers is problematic for some people, and usually when they see, like when they start to realize how many LARPers there are who aren't really building as complex things as they are, they kind of start freeing up and hopefully getting the point. So please, guys, do build in public. All right, we have a couple questions. So
Yeah.
Any insights into efforts to improve safety for consumer crypto users?
Yeah, there's a ton of efforts in terms of different levels of the stack. I would say everything on the wallet side, that is probably P0 for the Phantoms of the world. I think ironically, one of the questions that we get most of the foundation is, hey, can you introduce us to Phantom, because we need to allow list or get our domain off of kind of a blacklist registry. So I think Phantom, for example, like we're actually, if you need a domain allow listed and you're working on something and you're not able to get in touch with Phantom through their traditional means, we're happy to facilitate that process. So in some regards, I think Phantom is being extremely conservative and great for them. I think in terms of efforts, one, I would say suggestion is don't create urgency around a claim or a product launch. Like if you're kind of minting an NFT or launching a token, there is a direct correlation between how urgent an action is and how likely it is to actually be a scam to drain your wallet. Like the one that's going around, ironically targeting, I think, some super team folks as well, is like, first 10 get an NFT or like a token allocation, right? And that's always going to be a fraud 99% of the time. So as a builder, keep that in mind, right? And actually find a way to reward people who have been with you early without creating urgency. Maybe it's, they followed your Twitter account, first 100 people who followed your Twitter account. That's a very, very easy thing to query, or people who've given you feedback. Other ways of kind of giving back value that don't create urgency and don't put a user's end funds at risk.
I was not expecting an answer this non-technical. I actually love it. All right, a good question from Josip. As a founder of an early stage consumer startup, when should I launch a token? Pre-revenue, post-revenue, or when?
Yeah, I have a kind of a qualitative or philosophical answer, then we could talk about specifics. Tokens are very good to accelerate network effects, but they don't create network effects. So if you have kind of a cold start problem, launching a token is not going to solve that. But if you have a user behavior that you want to incentivize, say you're a DeFi protocol or a payments protocol, mapping out the user behavior that you potentially want, having a points program, for example, or a standard rewards program, very similar to Web 2 or traditional loyalty programs. These things work for a reason. There's like a lot of pattern matching that we could do in crypto to traditional industries. So I would actually be very mindful of that. Like a token launch is not a last resort. It should be something to actually create stronger user growth when you're already on that slope And then also just something obvious, it's a monumental decision that it's really tough to put the genie back in the bottle, right? So I speak to a lot of teams who said, you know, we wish we did our token launch differently, or we actually weren't ready for a token and we wish we could tie back the equity somehow, but now we have a bunch of token holders who aren't giving value specifically. So I would say be extremely, extremely thoughtful, and see how it maps to core user behaviors that you want to incentivize or realign.
Yeah, we also get like a lot of teams that are unhappy after they release a token because they underestimate, like it's you're now developing a whole new product next to your product. You have all these holders that you have to manage, the sentiment, the price, it's Pandora's box for real. So all right, a very interesting question for me, because I actually Solana Foundation is a bit, let's say, mystified, especially for people outside, a bit more outside of the ecosystem, maybe less for super team leads. But what do you guys in Foundation internally talk about the most? Is it Raj's bicep? What is?
Yeah, it's Raj's bench press. That's a phenomenal question. I think it's this concept of blue ocean versus red ocean. I think red ocean as a concept is what are kind of like small marginal gains that everyone else is doing around us, whether it be hype, whether it be base, right? Like the current meta. And then blue ocean, which is what is Solana uniquely positioned to do as a fast, cheap blockchain with differentiated tech and a differentiated community, even relative to other fast and cheap chains. So I think the question is, what can we always think about what can we do that is blue ocean? We're always going to have to do the red ocean things. You're always going, as a startup founder as well, you're always going to have to do red ocean things. Red ocean things, I mean, you're always going to have a community lead when you scale, posting on X or posting on Twitter, competing for mind share, right? That's almost like PvP. Blue ocean is, I would say, PvE, right? Like what are unique product categories that Solana and the Solana Foundation can open up? For Solana, it was like fast and cheap, right? Like Raj tells a story that they were working on Solana when crypto kitties were released on Ethereum, right? And that's like a completely different paradigm of you're working on decentralized NASDAQ at a theoretical, at the time, 50,000 transactions per second, when the fastest or the most adopted blockchain couldn't even handle, crypto kitties. So I think that is very much blue ocean. So the things that we think about specifically are like, what are the things that the Solana Foundation can do that the ecosystem, for whatever reason, can't? So that is, remittance payments, looking at unique use cases that for some reason the ecosystem isn't working on, or working on onboarding like the Visas, the PayPals of the world, getting them on Solana, and then connecting them to ecosystem teams, because fundamentally the Solana Foundation, we're not going to build competitive businesses. We're always going to hand off opportunities to the ecosystem. That's how we win, that's how we grow, but that's how we do it in a sustainable way. Other ecosystems are building things internally at their respective foundations, and that doesn't make sense because that actually doesn't incentivize people to actually build revenue generating successful businesses on top of their respective chains. I know a long answer, but I think that's like what everything comes back to at the end of the day.
Great answer. Yeah, I've not heard of the blue ocean, red ocean system before. I Googled it in the meantime. I gotta say, I'm loving that way of thinking. Cool. Okay. Should a technical developer have a financial advisor or analyst for managing and understanding finances in terms of costs and profits for ETF tokens and yield generating strategies to check if the models are optimal? So the question is, should a dev have a finance guy for the financial project?
It definitely depends on the project. I assume this is a DeFi question, or a DeFi project rather. It's so interesting. The way I'm interpreting this question or this ask is we work in such a nascent field where laws and regulations aren't necessarily in sync with reality with what's happening, i.e., for example, staking, there's a whole discussion in the United States as pertaining to tax implementations of staking. If, Sol is a commodity, why are you getting taxed as if when you receive staking payments on Sol every epoch, as if it's not a commodity, for example? So I think there is a question. My not financial advice, my not legal advice is there is kind of a intuition of obviously what you're doing is good in terms of like a moral perspective, like right and wrong, but also it depends. I would very much consult with a either financial advisor or lawyer in your local jurisdiction, just because Solana is global and I'm not really sure where you might be.
Yeah, and there's sometimes people that get to project submission and MVP and figure out they're doing something very illegal. So do check beforehand.
But that mindset might actually, the discovery might actually uncover something interesting that you're working on, right? If it's a regulatory blocker, or if it's just a human behavior blocker that people haven't thought about. Staking, for example, like the LST realization, I would say, resulted from this, like tax implementation security concerns. So there's always kind of key learnings from these situations.
All right, Daniel Lopham, or Nomu CEO, asks, as consumer crypto Yoda, what do you foresee as up and coming verticals? That's a good title.
Yeah, so I think we of course talked about NFTs specifically. I think as a community, it's not up and coming, but I think like it's extremely underrated. We have to talk about prediction markets just because they've been in the news and on crypto Twitter a ton. My personal thesis is that we're seeing a convergence of finance and fun, of like the right curve and the left curve. Wall Street's becoming more like crypto is becoming more like Wall Street. And I think that convergence is reflected in the real world, where it's a hyper financialization of everything. You can speculate, you can trade anything, not only in crypto, not only in Solana, but the world is becoming more like that with Kalshi and Polymarket. So there are a ton of opportunities on the prediction market side, whether it's prediction market tooling from aggregators, right? There's a lot of interesting data on Kalshi and Polymarket. These markets aren't actually efficient with each other at all. There's asymmetries all the time. There are arbitrage opportunities all the time. That's a unique problem space to tackle. Kalshi just released an integration with Jupiter that allows you to bet on, I think, one limited Kalshi market for now, but it uses an RFQ model that actually opens up potentially all of Kalshi markets on Solana, which I think is uniquely interesting. So what does it look like to actually, if you're building a super app, a consumer app, to actually offer users the ability to not only trade a market, but actually collateralize their position on Kalshi or on a prediction market? I think something that it's extremely unrelated is the ability to bet on a market using any SPL token. You could use Pengu, you can use Bonk on any SPL token. So I think prediction markets as a whole are extremely, not even up and coming, are just hot right now. And I think we need developer attention and builders resources on it. Jerry at the foundation is here. He mentioned collectibles. I think that's an area where culture is converging. I think primitives around collectibles, whether it be through perps, whether it be through collateralization, I think advanced financial primitives around these use cases are only going to continue to be a bigger need gap. So I would say those two things, and I could talk about this forever.
Love it. All right, we got 15 more minutes and a question from this Joseph guy again. What are all the departments at Solana Foundation? I understand that there's gaming folks, development, payments, any other teams dedicated to specific verticals. I also, as super team lead, am not aware of all the departments in Foundation.
Yeah, so we have I would say on the growth side, we have all these respective verticals, and also a ton of other verticals, from decentralized finance to DeepIn to AI to someone pertaining to stablecoins, for example, to obviously someone managing the grants and the capital program on the growth side, and many more that I'm probably forgetting. Jerry also works on DeSci as a vertical at the foundation, in terms of having someone dedicated and knowledgeable there. So I think the beauty of the foundation is just having elasticity in terms of seeing what's happening in the market and responding to it. For example, Bitcoin, DATs were a huge thing. We want coverage everywhere, essentially, and that's only on I would say the growth business development side. Obviously, we have an amazing marketing team, as well as a network team and a tech team who, is more so a teach a man to fish mentality that actually helps teams get on Solana as safely and as fast as possible. I do have time, unfortunately, for only one more question.
All right, we do just have one more. Just wanted to mention, the marketing guys and the dev guys we've had contact with, and those guys are all killers. Like, really, always a pleasure working with them. A final question on something we have not covered. That's why I like it. Why are DAO projects less focused or talked about? So why has governance failed us, Pedro?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's failed us. I think it's just I wouldn't say it's failed. I think MetaDAO has actually a remnants, or picked up the torch of DAOs on Solana, and that's been actually an extremely innovative financial primitive that people have been using. Realms, or SPL governance, which is was the OG standard on Solana, incubated by Solana Labs, was also picked up by Squads, and Squads uses SPL governance for all of its multi-sigs today. So I would think about it less as a vertical, as that question suggests, DeFi, DePIN, and more as a horizontal, that it's actually built up. DAOs on Solana has allowed product primitives to be integrated into the most successful applications on Solana, that being Squads, that being MetaDAO, and also a lot of top projects such as Metaplex. Going back to Joseph again, coming up all the time, leverages these governance and these DAO standards today.
Amazing. I think that's it. Like, thank you so much for your time. I could stay here and talk to you for another hour. Really, all the answers. You can see the passion. You can see you love what you do, and it's so insightful. So thank you so much. I'd like some W's in the chat. Please cash down the stuff for Pedro.
No, I appreciate it, and how you can reach out to me is I'll send my Twitter here. I'll try to respond to all DMs, but I think you guys are the blood and the energy of Solana. We want to surround ourselves with people who are running through walls for their products and enabling to make that actually happen. So I'm only as passionate as you guys. So thank you for being such a nice and awesome crowd, and I'm really excited to see what you built.
Thank you so much, man. I hope we see you next hackathon as well. We're making this a regular slowly.
So it'd be a privilege.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Ciao.